Who's really going to be there when the years pile up and life shifts beneath your feet? It's a question that sneaks up on you, one most of us don't wrestle with until the moment's already passed us by. When we're young, we collect people like souvenirs, classmates, co-workers, gym buddies, that neighbor who always waves. We assume they'll stick around, that they'll be there when the road gets bumpy. But time's got a way of peeling back the layers, showing you who's just passing through and who's built to stay. As we age, that big noisy circle shrinks, and what matters isn't how many names you've got in your phone, it's who's still picking up the call when you need them most. In this video, we're diving into the 4 kinds of friends who'll stand by you when the days grow long and quiet. These aren't the ones who just show up for the good times. They're the ones who sit with you through the storms, who bring light to the everyday, and who make you feel like you're still you, no matter how much life changes. Plus, we'll unpack why some folks, even the familiar ones, might not be worth betting on when things get real. So, if you've ever wondered who's truly got your back, or who deserves more of your time, stick around. By the end, you might just see your relationships through a whole new lens, and maybe even feel a little spark to lean into the ones that count. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. We've got more coming your way, and your support keeps this going. Let's jump in. Number 1. A friend who hears you, no strings attached. There's a quiet magic in being truly heard, when someone lets your words spill out without cutting in, without that subtle itch to fix you or shift the spotlight. It's rare though, especially as the years stack up and people start to assume they've got you figured out, your stories, your quirks, your sighs. They'll nod sure, but you can feel the impatience, the half listening, like they're waiting for their turn or just humoring you. That's why a friend who listens, really listens, no agenda, no judgment, is a treasure that shines brighter with age. Imagine Clara, an 81-year-old who'd spent years feeling like her voice was a whisper in a windstorm. Her kids would fidget through her stories about the old days, cutting her off with a distracted, "Yeah, Mom, we know," while her book club pals would smile politely, but always pivot the chat back to their own lives. She'd gotten used to it, that shrinking feeling, until she met Joan at a community garden one spring afternoon. They'd sit on a weathered bench, coffee cups steaming between them, and Joan would just stay. No rushing, no steering, just eyes that locked on hers and a stillness that said, "Go on, I'm here." Clara could unravel her tangled thoughts. Memories of her late husband, worries about her grandkids, even the small joy of a robin she'd spotted that morning. And Joan would soak it in, nodding softly, asking a question now and then, not to fill the silence, but to pull Clara deeper into her own story. After one of those talks, Clara said it felt like someone had opened a window in a stuffy room. She hadn't realized how much she'd been holding her breath, waiting for someone to care enough to hear her out. That's what this friend does. They don't dissect your words or hand you a solution on a platter. They're not there to play therapist or coach. They're a witness, a safe harbor where your voice can dock without fear of being waved off. Research backs this up. Psychologists say being heard like that can melt stress, steady your pulse, even keep your mind sharper as the years roll on, because it's not just about unloading, it's about being seen. Strip away the studies, and it's simpler than that. It's peace, pure and deep. A friend who listens without strings is like a lantern in the fog. They don't need to say, "You matter," because their silence screams it. They're telling you your ramblings, your regrets, your little triumphs still have weight, even when the world's too busy to notice. And here's where it turns back on you. You've got to offer that too. Be the one who sets the phone face down, who lets their story breathe, who resists the urge to jump in with your own 2 cents. Ask the extra question, not the polite one, but the one that says, "I'm all in." Because when life slows down and the noise fades, there's nothing more anchoring than knowing someone's got the patience to sit with you, hear you, and let you feel whole again. Whole. Number 2, a friend who pops in, steady as a heartbeat. There's something alive in a phone that rings just because, or a knock at the door with no big reason behind it. It's not about grand gestures, it's the small, regular stitches that weave a safety net. Think of Leo, a 76-year-old widower whose days had blurred since his wife passed. His street was friendly enough, but it was all hellos and goodbyes, nothing that stuck. Then his old coworker Tom started texting every Tuesday, just a quick, "How's it going?" Sometimes they'd grab a sandwich, sometimes they'd just trade a few lines about baseball. But that little rhythm, it gave Leo something to lean on, a pulse in his week. A friend who checks in doesn't wait for SOS signals. They show up because you're you, not because something's broken. That's rare, and it's trust you can feel in your bones. Research says steady check-ins can keep loneliness at bay, slow the fade of memory, even lift your spirits when the days drag. But more than that, it's a tether, a signal that someone's still got you on their radar. If you've got someone like that, you know the warmth it brings. If not, why not start it? Pick a day, reach out, make it yours. Because when someone keeps you in their orbit, it's a whisper that cuts through the noise. You're not forgotten. If this is hitting home, drop a number 2 in the comments. I'd love to know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now and hit that bell. Your support fuels more of this. Let's keep going. Number 3. A friend who gets your soul, not just your small talk. As the years stretch out, the surface stuff, the weather updates, the quick hellos, starts to feel static and you find yourself hungering for something thicker, something that sinks into your bones. You don't just want to chat, you want a tether. Someone who's tuned to the same frequency, who sees the world through a lens that feels like home. This isn't about matching schedules or swapping gossip. It's a friend who mirrors what's buried in you, the values that hum beneath the noise, the things you'd fight for if you had to. Picture Edith, a 78-year-old widow who'd always been the social type. Card games at the senior center, coffee runs with the ladies down the block. But it left her restless, like she was skimming the surface of something she couldn't name. She met Ruth at a local history talk, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a stack of notes on old railroad towns. They bonded over faded maps, sure, but it grew into more. Late-night porch talks about what makes a life worth living, debates over courage versus comfort, quiet moments where they'd sit with a book between them and not need to fill the air. With Ruth, Edith didn't just pass the hours, she felt her mind stretch, her spirit lift, like she was still growing into herself even at 78. That's the gift of this friend. They don't have to agree with every word you say, but they get what drives you. Maybe it's integrity, maybe it's wonder, maybe it's a stubborn hope that the world can still surprise you. They're not stuck on who you were 20 years ago. They meet you where you are, and they push you, gently, to keep reaching. Research nods at this. Gerontologists say these soul-deep ties can spark joy that lasts, shore up your resilience, even make you feel more alive because you're not just coasting, you're connected. More than data, it's the way they make your laughter fuller, your silences richer, your questions sharper. You don't need a lifetime of history for this. Sometimes it's a late spark, a chance meeting that clicks into place like it was waiting for you. Edith hadn't known Ruth in her younger days, but now she'd found a mirror. Not a perfect reflection, but one that caught the light of who she was still becoming. That's the beauty here. This friend doesn't just kill time, they amplify it, turning a conversation into a compass that points you back to yourself. So if you've got someone who stirs your thoughts, who feels like they're walking the same winding path, don't let it fade, nurture it, sit with it. Because they're not just company, they're a piece of your soul's geography, reminding you that even in the quiet years, you're still unfolding. Number 4, a friend who holds steady when the ground shakes. Life's got a way of testing your roster, not when the sun's out and the drinks are cold, but when the shadows roll in, when the news stings, when the quiet gets too heavy to carry alone. That's when you see who's just along for the ride and who's got roots deep enough to weather your storms. This friend isn't the loudest at the party, or the one with the best stories. They're the one who stays when the room empties, who doesn't flinch when the air turns raw. Think of Harold, an 83-year-old who'd built a life brick by brick with his brother, only to lose him to a slow fade last year. The funeral was packed, flowers, hugs, casseroles piled high. A week later, the silence hit like a freight train. Neighbors waved from their lawns, old buddies sent a text or two, then nothing. People didn't know what to say, so they stopped showing up. Except Pete, a wiry guy from their factory days who'd always been more gruff than mushy. Pete didn't call ahead or Queensland's ask if Harold needed anything. He just rolled up in his pickup, cracked open a couple of beers, and sat on Harold's sagging porch steps, not saying much, just there. They'd watch the dusk settle, maybe grumble about the ball game, and when the silence stretched, Pete didn't try to fill it with platitudes. He'd just tip his bottle and say, "Rough one, huh?" That was it, but it was everything. Harold said those visits were like a rope tossed over a cliff, not pulling him up, just keeping him from falling further. That's the mark of this friend. They don't need a playbook or a speech. They show up when the script runs out, when the polite condolences dry up and everyone else drifts back to their own lives. They're at the ER waiting room, bleary-eyed with a coffee they don't even like. Or they're the ones who swing by with a takeout box. No fuss, no, "let me know if you need me" nonsense. Just action. Studies say this kind of steady presence can pull you back from the brink. Less depression, less isolation. Because it's not about fixing the hurt, it's about sharing the weight. But forget the stats. It's the way they sit with your grief. Not ahead of it or around it, but right in it, like a shadow that doesn't crowd you out. Old age doesn't mess around. Bodies falter, losses stack up, and the world you knew starts to blur. And in that haze, you don't need a dozen voices chiming in. You need one that cuts through, steady as a heartbeat. It wasn't there every day, didn't have to be. It was the depth of it, the way he'd linger without a clock ticking, that told Harold he wasn't alone. So ask yourself, who'd plant themselves beside you when the walls shake? Who'd bring the beer, the soup, the silence you didn't know you needed? That's your rock, your keeper, because when the ground gives way, they're the ones who don't. When we're young, we think a full room means we've made it, friends spilling out the door, laughter bouncing off the walls. But age whispers something softer. It's not the head count, it's the heart count. Ones who hear you out, who check in, who vibe with your spirit, who weather your winters. Those are your four walls when the world wobbles. So pause today. Who's your crew? Who's shown up not just for the highs, but the lows? And flip it. Who are you showing up for? Because in the end, it's not about who you used to know. It's about who you hold and who holds you back. The years ahead can glow, not because they're crowded, but because they're deep. Pick your people. Love them hard. They're your lifeline. Thanks for hanging out with us. Drop a comment. What clicked for you today? How are you going to carry it forward? Your voice keeps us going. If this spoke to you, like it, subscribe, share it. Let's keep building this together. See you next time.